Hi, Psychology Nerds, and welcome to an episode of Psychology and Stuff, the podcast out of Phoenix Studios at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. I'm Ryan Martin, one of the hosts of Psychology and Stuff, and I'm here, as always, with my friend, my co-host, chair of the UW-Green Bay Psychology Program, Dr. Georgina Wilson-Dunges. How's it going, G?
It is going great. You know, I'm an environmental psychologist, and so April is a huge month for me. And you may be thinking like, oh, it's tax season. But
yes.
No, that is not the reason why it's a very hopping month for me. It is because of Earth Day, and I'm so excited. It's my favorite time of year because, well, I feel like every day is Earth Day. At least for me, but I like that the whole entire world also celebrates with me. And so it's a great month. How are things going with you, Ryan?
It's going okay. I assumed it was tax day because I know how much money environmental psychologists make. And so this is a really, really big time of year for you where you have to take care of all those extra finances. I'm doing well. We're recording this actually right at the beginning. Yesterday was actually one of my least favorite days of the year, which is April Fool's Day. My son tried one prank on me. I got frustrated almost immediately. He pretended to fall down the stairs, which was great. Yes. So I was in my office. I heard a very loud thump, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "April Fools." And I said, "All right, so we're on the same page. I do not care for April Fool's jokes." So,
and then you made him listen to our previous episode about how some things are not funny and pranks are one of them. So
I felt terrible. I felt like I was sort of shaming him in the moment, but at the same time, I was really scared. I thought he fell down the stairs. So but I do enjoy April. We're getting. I think March is my least favorite month for weather reasons, and so we're kind of moving into a better weather month. I think. I know it can go awry still. We've had some real bad storms in April, but so let's talk about Earth Day and Earth Week, because that is the theme of this episode, right? This is coming out on April 15th, which means that next week is Earth Week. When I was a kid, Earth Day was just a single day. Now it gets a whole week. So we're moving in the direction that you want to move, right? Which is every day is Earth Day.
Right. Like Earth Year is the goal, like our Earth Century. But, I'll go with Earth Week. And then Earth Month, I'm out here just plugging the earth all day long.
Excellent.
24/7,
Excellent.
365.
Well, we have our guest today is related to that theme. So I want to get to her in a second. Before we do, we have two pieces of business we have to take care of. One is that our intern Kelsey isn't here, and we need to, we gave her the day off because her birthday is tomorrow and she wanted to celebrate today. So she is not with us today, and we miss her, and we're, I think, both feeling a little bit helpless. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I felt like we were kicking it back to the before times, before we had an intern and you and I had to do everything on our own, which is like somewhat less well-run machine than when Kelsey is here. So, but happy birthday, Kelsey.
Yes, happy birthday. It took us, so Kelsey, it took us like 20 minutes just to take the picture at the intro of the episode. So, the other thing I wanted to do is just mention, give our listeners an assignment. So we have got our final episode of the season, and we are going to be talking about hope and resilience related to the pandemic. And we're going to really be talking about the psychology of hope and bringing some science on that, but we also want to hear from you. So if you want to be featured in that episode in some way, you can call the following number and leave a message for us. The number is 920-328-5167. You can call that number and leave a message, and you can tell us what's giving you hope right now. Is that the assignment, G? Is that what we want them to do?
Yes.
Yeah. So call that number. I'm going to say it again in a second. Tell us what's bringing you hope right now. What makes you feel good about the future. And we are going to be playing those in a little montage, I think, at the end of our last episode of the season. So that number again is 920-328-5167. All right.
We want to hear from everyone, just one sentence. What is bringing you hope? And after this incredibly challenging year, what's hopeful? And so we're going to end our season with hope, and I'm so excited.
I am too. We should get to our guest today, I think. You ready?
Yes.
All right.
I'm ready.
So we are very excited for our guest today. This, like I said, this is our Earth Week episode. She is a professor in the art discipline at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay and teaches painting and drawing courses. She received her MFA in painting from The Ohio State University. UW-Green Bay awarded her the 2011 Founders Award for Excellence in Scholarship. She received SECAC's 2016 Award for Excellence in Teaching and a 2015 Silver Award from Graphist Design Annual New York. Recently, she served as the Erasmus Visiting Lecturer at the University of Kassel, Germany, and Artist in Residence at the Buren College of Art in Ireland. Please welcome Christy Dietz. How are you, Christy?
Oh, just great. Thank you for inviting me.
We are really excited to have you here. I'm going to actually ask Georgina to sort of frame the episode here because this was very much her idea. She said, I've got a really cool one for Earth Week. So G, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Well, I should disclose that Christy and I live next door to each other. Like, ironically, we're like 20 feet away from each other right now in our two different houses doing this episode. And so I get some like firsthand looks at some of the artwork that Christy does, and she's an amazing artist. And I also am on the sustainability committee at our university, and she won the inaugural sustainability teaching grant for the work that she did in Ireland and also in Albuquerque, New Mexico, doing sort of a mashup, and she's probably going to be mad at me for using that word, like a mashup of art and ecology. And really exploring how those two merge together and are represented in her art. So I thought it would be fantastic to talk about art and ecology and psychology too, and how that can help us celebrate Earth Week. And the theme of Earth Week is Restore Our Earth. And so I think that is just a really great theme to also think about. So I wonder, Christy, if you could tell us, I know this is only one segment of your art, but can you tell us like how you became intrigued with art and ecology, and tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I would say probably extends way back to my childhood, and living in an area that was close to a lot of forests and country land. And my father was a farm boy and grew up in the country, and so did all of my mother's folks. So we were often in those kind of areas, and not too far from our home. Also, there were a lot of trees and things. So I think having family walks in those kind of areas were really primary experiences. And also I found that I would often go off by myself in those areas and would make little altars that somehow I found a way to like focus and quiet my mind. And it could be because there were a lot of kids in the house and dogs, but that's probably maybe a real initial kind of thing. And then also my father, who's a dentist and probably an eye for detail, somewhat like myself, he would tell us on those walks, you have to look closely at things. to understand them. So I remember when I was maybe in about 5th grade, it's probably the time when your body's really starting to develop and your senses are heightening. And I remember there was a change in my eyesight, actually, that I could see things differently and actually record the things that I was looking at somewhat accurately. And so I remembered him saying, looking closely at things to understand them. And I think I was drawing a lot of things from nature as a way of understanding them. And I got that feeling that penetrating things through your own vision, finding patterns and rhythms would somehow uncover something more deeply. But then as I got older, I think studying about art, and of course, I went on into art, and in the 80s and 90s, I started to do a series of landscapes that were more sort of sculptural. And reading something like Lucy Lepard's Overlay, that was from the 80s, really influenced me in my thinking, and Susie Gablett's Reenchantment of Art. And those are about art and ecology and the environment. So I guess those are some early influences and what intrigues me about it. I do think that eco art has a potential to transform us and our planet. And I think through that, it sounds pretty idealistic, but I think that if we understand and enjoy the beauty and the complexities of nature, that somehow that can be a way to restore and nurture Earth. Certainly is a time we are almost to the time where if we don't do it now, it's going to be too late. But also I think if that sort of shift could let us restore and nurture our relationships with each other, which is really needed too. I guess that kind of cognitive dissonance, that's a surefire way of getting rid of that, isn't it?
I agree, and I love that you use the word restore a lot in talking about it, and that is the theme. But the theme is to restore our Earth. But what I hear you saying is that art and nature and ecology can actually restore us, and I think that is an amazing gift that nature and art can provide. Like even at a very young age, when you said like you would go out into nature to calm and to find like some sort of serenity and focus, that is exactly what I study as a psychologist, as an environmental psychologist. That is exactly what I would say is the basis of a lot of the research that in environment and psychology.
So I used to work at an apple orchard, and there was this was the job I had all through college, and there was a woman who would go out and paint in the orchard almost every day. She was just always there, and she would go to different spots and paint landscapes and set up an easel, and I always thought it looked like the perfect life to me, right? I mean, it just felt so amazing to see this person just get to spend the day in nature doing something she obviously loved. But I'm curious to hear, because one of the things I also have been thinking about a lot lately, and I've actually been talking to one of your colleagues, Allison Gates, about, and that is the moods people need to be in when they create art, and the way in which we can, maybe, because I'm an anger researcher, I've been thinking specifically about anger, but I was wondering to what degree, I guess, the calming effect of nature influences your mood and therefore your art, and if that's always what you want, or if there are other emotions you want to bring into it, and how those things play out with spending time in nature.
Oh, you two have such good questions. Um, um, yes, I think when you're in the when you're in the studio actually doing the work, um, you really need a focus that lets everything else out. And I think artists have different rituals when they walk into the studio. Some people want to say their rituals because they feel like it's so sacred. I was recently on a, a podcast with other artists, and we were talking, someone brought that question up, and some people just wouldn't reveal what they did. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's very interesting, but I respect it. Like I have fuzzy shoes I need to put on, and I put on usually NPR. And that helps kind of get me in the mood where I'm putting everything from the day behind me and to focus on making art. It's actually very challenging and difficult because you have a goal that you're doing. And I think there are all ways of engaging in art making, but probably for someone like me and like you know that it's a language or a way of knowing, you know, whatever your study is, that's a way of knowing. And that really has a lot to do with a balance of logic and intuition, analysis and feeling. And the language part, you're always seeking to break into some sort of new ground. And then I think you listen to that voice in the back of your head that is a sort of like this internal dialogue that you're always playing, but then it adds a new loop somehow. And but yes, you do have to have quiet. And there's when you really hit on it and you're making, I feel like you're really in the zone, in the flow, so to speak. And it zips along, and it's so exhilarating and so pleasurable. But I really think anybody can be an artist, truly. And not everyone's going to be an academic artist or a gallery artist or a professional artist. But I really like the idea of some sort of even small thing, some even ephemeral thing that someone might do that could help form a connection for them to someone else, to an idea that's somehow transformational. And I really think that that's true. And if we all thought that way, that would be a good thing.
You were talking about building small altars out in nature as a child. I think that you and I were the same child, just growing up in different states. Like I spent a large portion of my childhood out in nature building fairy gardens to feed the animals that are out in nature. And I also have always been really interested in architecture as a form of art and making architecture and art out in nature. And I am by no means an artist, like a professional artist or an academic artist, but I got so much from spending that time in nature, not just sitting there, but actually like creating something in nature using natural items. And I wonder, I know that some of your art has used items that are organic or natural from the environment. Can you talk about how that came about and sort of a little bit about that artwork?
Sure. You're probably referring to the series Earth Texts. And that series came out of the earlier landscape sort of relief sculpture type of pieces that I was doing. And actually there was a whole bunch of leftover plywood from those pieces and scraps. And you know, being a Midwesterner or just frugally minded, I thought I had to do something with those. And then I started to think, oh gee, I could use scraps of wood, you know, wherever I can find them. And those pieces are a lot smaller. and they're actually made in 2 sections and brought together. So the pieces of the series as a whole, titled Earth Text, they play off of the form of an open book, and they're texts of the Earth, but they're also in some ways autobiographical explorations. They're about the fragile connection that we have with the Earth and each other, and then also about language, and then things about surfacing that are part of painting vocabulary, so to speak. So they combine a lot of things. But there's some serendipity with that series too. One day, after we had a big thunderstorm in our neighborhood, there was a bird's nest that landed on my front porch. And so I thought, well, gee, that needs an art piece for it. And so things like that were easy to gather, like slices of wood that I found in our wood shop once, or just sticks, collecting them, stones. And also those pieces are painted with encaustic. Encaustic is a very ancient painting technique and actually done on wood always. Encaustic comes from the Greek word enkaustikos, which means to burn in. So that painting technique, you heat up the wax and pigment and you brush it on. And after that, you refuse it down into the surface with the heat source. So it's kind of an aggressive form of painting in some ways, and very three-dimensional, but it has beeswax in it. And through the course of using beeswax in those pieces, which will sometimes appear by itself, I started to use other kinds of wax. And there's always metaphorical properties in materials. So they're actually animal, vegetable, and mineral waxes. And so I thought too that one of the goals of the pieces were to include elements of animal, vegetable, and mineral. So I started to cut my own hair and put in those pieces. And they're sort of visual puns. One example of a title is a reading circle, which has circles of sliced pieces of wood going around, and they're put into indentations in the piece. Another piece is called Spiral Bound, and that has hair from old age, like childhood to old age, with like a French spiral braid binding the two halves together. So anytime I show that piece, I have to learn how to French braid all over again. That's just 2 quick examples from that series and the materials that I used. But, I was thinking, Georgina, of materiality and painting, and then also using other histories of materials that have other histories that you combine with your own history. And I remembered the bread proofing boxes that you did a mindful exercise for our students when I had them working with those bread proofing boxes from a bakery. They were just such beautiful objects. And you guided them through that project. And that's a real example of materiality and how it can add a rich language to whatever it is that you might be doing as an artist.
Christy, I have your website pulled up here, and I'm looking at some of the pieces you're talking about while you describe them. It's christydietz.com, by the way, and we're going to make sure we link to it from all of the different places people see this, because I pulled up Earth Text so I could look at the ones you were talking about while you spoke about them. But there's so many pieces here, and they're all so beautiful. I love the very first one on the list, Bookbinding, is a really, really interesting little looking piece, and there's just so much here that's so fascinating. I think one of the things I'm always struck by when I have a chance to talk with artists is how much creativity, and not just, I guess, creativity goes into the method itself. As you were describing the method, I can't remember the word you used, acoustic, is that correct?
Encaustic, yes.
Encaustic. Okay. When you were describing the method, I was just so struck by how fascinating that is, and how just how much there is to it that is so outside my knowledge base. I'm curious, to talk a little bit about how you see art as being able to help motivate people to restore the earth. You mentioned before we're pretty close to a point where we need to do something, or else we're unable to recover. How can we motivate? How can art motivate people to do that?
I suppose art and ecology, and I guess just by engaging in making, viewing, studying, and sharing, those are all things that help focus the mind. I was also thinking there was this really great quote by Rachel Carson. It says, "Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts." And it's a little bit of a double-edged quote, isn't it? As long as life lasts. Whoa, yeah.
I think about, because there's another type of art I'm thinking of right now that I see every time I go to an aquarium or something like that, and it's the art that's been created out of pollutants. So it's the stuff they drag out of the ocean, and then they create a sculpture out of it or something like that. And I wonder what you think of those, and what messages those send to people when they see them. I'm starting to think about them in a new way as we talk about it, I think.
Oh yeah, I love those projects. Some artists I've discovered recently. One person, I don't know if you saw her artwork or not, her name is Pam Longobardi. And she has something called the Drifters Project. You can find her online. And she's an ecofeminist, and she creates artwork from plastics that wash ashore. And I'm trying to think of how to describe her work, just large and small objects, and then she rearranges them in the gallery. So for example, she recreates maybe like a 5-foot sculpture from all this plastic garbage, a cornucopia, and out of it is coming all of the garbage that it's made from that hasn't been transformed into the cornucopia onto the gallery floor. So they always have a message. Or she'll take plastic pieces and on the wall and put them into the shape of a water drop, or is it a teardrop? Just some really beautiful stuff. But there's some really great artists I really admire, and just diving into their work and trying to understand it. There's a fellow named John Sabraw who, his Chroma series, he paints with, they're sort of abstract landscapes, and they have usually a reference to maps. And they're about our fragile connection with nature, but he actually derives the pigments from abandoned coal mines that have run iron oxide into the land. And he retrieves the iron oxide and then makes paint out of it. And he's actually partnered with a paint company, Gamblin, and they've made a limited run artist grade paint of that. So I love that idea of that collaboration. And so the profits from that paint will go back to helping recover polluted streams. But there are a number of other people. Andy Goldsworthy, he's someone that does ephemeral work that he photographs. It's really quite simple but beautiful, and must be really hard to do. He'll take leaves and arrange them in fall leaves in beautiful colors and patterns across the landscape. And they are so painterly, but they remain as a photographic document. And this is my new crush as an artist, on another artist. This guy from the Netherlands, his name is Bernard see if I can say it right, Schmilde. And you probably have seen these. They've been in some all over the place. They're very surreal. And what he does, so he has to know the science of doing this. He'll create a floating cloud, an actual cloud in a really unorthodox place, like a gallery room or a church altar, a small church space, or just any number of things. And he knows how to create multiple clouds or single clouds. And when you look at them, they remind you of like a Magritte painting, because the cloud is on an interior instead of the exterior. I'm not sure if this is echo, but it really, I find them just so exciting, and they make you think of many possibilities, and our connection to nature, and some things that are metaphysical and but connective at the same time. So yeah.
So cool. I also have like professional crushes as well, and so I'm happy to hear that that's not just me, that others that do that as well. I wonder, as we come to a close here, you could talk any about how art helps us find hope or heals us. I know that art therapy is as a field that combines together both of our fields together, but what are ways in which art can help us heal from some of the stressors that come from climate change and from the pandemic or other things? How can art help heal us?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of a really complicated question. I guess maybe for somebody that does it, they have to think of all the many, like, this goes in a million directions. But maybe a simple story. I was thinking of when I was a child again, and this, I guess it has a healing element to it. Well, anyway, I was maybe about 3 and drawing on paper, and I was thinking that I wanted to give presents to everyone for Christmas, and I was so frustrated that I didn't have any money to buy anything. I don't know why I thought of this at that time, but I guess it's like a way to connect more deeply with people that you love. And so I drew a picture of myself, and then I remember putting outside my hands all these little presents that I imagined were what I would give that person. It was in a little box with a bow, and it was this very simple drawing. And then I remember on one hand, I thought, well, I have to put these all in a big bag so I can carry them to people. And I remember then starting with the line on my hand to draw the bag. And then it went from my hand out and around all the presents, and then came back to my hand. And when it came back to my hand, I really felt emotionally and in my imagination that I had given those presents. And then I had that drawing, and I gave it to my mother, and I explained what I was trying to do. And I think that connection, that then I saw her appreciation of what I was thinking about and trying and feeling. And then I just knew art had some sort of magic, some sort of way to connect to other people. And I was totally hooked. So yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Oh, it absolutely does. And I also think of it in your answer there that art is a gift as well. I mean, like, and I don't mean it like you're gifted with it, but that you gift others the things that are in your mind, or the things that are in your heart, or the soul, whatever, wherever those things are. That it gives you a way to gift those thoughts and feelings to others. And that's just spectacular, because I think we all search for ways to tell others what we're thinking and feeling. And it seems like art is a great way for you to do that, to share that gift with others. That's pretty cool.
That's nicely said.
Very nicely said. So, Christy, as we wrap up here, I want to make sure people know about your website, which is christydietz.com. Anywhere else that people can find out more about you or can check out your work? We will, of course, post it all of the different places that we are, but anywhere else?
Sure. If they want to join my Facebook page, I have my trips to my artist in residency at the Burren College of Art and the projects that I made there, which were mostly little ephemeral pieces that were based on my actually picking up garbage on my walks to and fro where I was living and then the college. Yeah, there's all my other sort of adventures and artwork are on my Facebook page. So that would be a good place.
Perfect. That sounds great. So, G, are you ready for a positive note?
I am.
All right. I have no idea who goes first. So
I don't know. I can go. I'll go first this time. I
perfect.
think it's my turn. So we decided that we were going to go with the theme of Earth Week and tell a time that we felt like the Earth restored us. That's a very big and vague sort of positive note, but I have been thinking a lot about how I'm not sure how I would have survived this pandemic had I not spent so much time in nature. I walk my dog twice a day, every day, out in the woods and out in nature. And like Christy said earlier when she was talking about walking in nature and her father telling her to pay attention to the details, I also have a passion for looking at the details of nature, no matter what the season is. And I also learned from one of our colleagues in First Nations Studies, Lisa Poupard, told me there is no such thing as bad weather because every kind of weather is a gift that helps our planet heal and grow. And so every time I'm out walking and it's raining and muddy and I'm grumpy, I just think to myself, pay attention to the details. How is this mud actually helping the earth heal and grow? And what will it bring in 6 weeks from now that will bring beauty to this earth that will help heal me? And so I have spent a ton of time in nature during this pandemic, and it is such a gift to me. What about you, Ryan?
Well, that is a very good one. Mine is also pandemic related, but although a more specific example, because so last summer, as you know, Georgina, I didn't get to spend as much time outside as I wanted to. I was learning a new job and I didn't have a laptop. So I was spending a lot of time in my home office. My wife had a laptop and she was also working from home. So she would go sit out on our patio and I would go out there and join her for things that did not require a computer, which was not very much of what I was doing. But like most people, we had not been on vacation for a long time and we had to cancel quite a few during the pandemic. And so we, last summer in August, took a trip to Upper Michigan to go camping. And this part isn't going to sound super naturey, but we rented an RV so that we could, mainly because we needed access to like a fridge and things like that. We weren't going to go into any restaurants. We weren't going to do anything so we needed or wanted that stuff. But I spent a week with my family in Upper Michigan at various campsites. And it was really one of those trips that in so many ways felt really pretty magical. Even though we had access to a kitchen, we cooked every meal but one, I think, out over the fire. We spent all we did all day was go on long hikes and go biking and swim, and sit around the fire. It was this really, really wonderful restorative trip. And there were two things about it. Part of it was the nature and part of it was family. But there was another interesting point too I had where, because for whatever reason, when I think about nature, I actually think about being alone. I don't necessarily, when I think about nature, I don't necessarily think about being with other people. And I'm not sure why that is. But there was a campsite across from us at our last stop that was having a birthday party for their son. And it, decided like it was going to be like a big family birthday party, but at this campsite. And watching them have sort of a birthday party that was very different than any I'd ever been to or had was a really, really fun, exciting, powerful moment where I just kind of got to see this family who probably hadn't been together in a significant way in a long time either, enjoy this time together. It was really, really nice and sweet. And I think good for me at a time when I think I was feeling pretty overwhelmed by the state of the world. So that was mine.
Absolutely. And I think like using the term, like when you're feeling overwhelmed, like going out in nature is such a way to restore your brain. And there's plenty of science behind behind that. And the neuroplasticity of your brain in nature is just phenomenal and so amazing. And so I do appreciate, Christy, you coming and sharing some of your thoughts about how you as an artist communicate that sort of connection with nature through art, and also our connections with each other, and how that's really important. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
I have to very quickly just share one of my favorite stories, teaching related story, because it relates to something you just said, Georgina. And I don't know if you remember this, but I think Christy will appreciate it too. But I used to teach in my class. I taught a section in my psych of emotion class on like 10 things that will make you happy or something like that. 10 things that will lead to happiness. And after I did it, a student came up to me, one of Georgina's students, and said, I have one you should add to that list, and it's spend time in nature. And this was probably, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I said, that's a good idea. And I went and talked to Georgina about it, and she gave me a ton of things to read. But the best part about the thing I like so much about that story is because it's now a very, very important part of that class, that it's something that I spend it's not just a one-off sort of thing. It's something I spend a big chunk of time on. And so I like that piece about us being able to learn from each other and having students be the conduit that kind of share that information too. So it's always been one of my favorite sort of teaching related stories, and wanted to talk about it quick. But
that's pretty awesome. So 11 things that lead to happiness.
Exactly. So
because you don't want to ditch one of the other ones.
Yeah.
You just want to add on.
that is the downside, is how I like nice sort of even numbers. So
as long as it wasn't 13, you're fine.
Yep, exactly. If somebody comes to me with 2 more, we're done. So, all right. Christy, thank you so much for being here. This has been absolutely fabulous. I love looking at your work, and I love hearing you talk about it. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. It was fun.
And then another quick thank you to our intern, Kelsey. You can see her work firsthand if you give us a follow at Psych and Stuff. She's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also see, that's one of the places we'll be putting out a lot of Christy's work, Christy's website, and so on. So go check those things out to see more. You can follow me on Twitter, or actually all of the places, at Anger Professor. And Georgina?
I'm at GeorgianaWD. So Georgina WD.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Psychology and Stuff is a production of Phoenix Studios at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. The executive producer is Ryan Martin, and the production manager is Kate Farley. Our audio production coordinator is Bill Salick. Our sound engineer for today's episode is Sarah Miller. Our graphic designer is Kimberly Bleese, and our intern is Kelsey Engelhardt. Special thanks also to our guest today, Dr. Christy Dietz. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also head over to our website, uwtb.edu/podcast, to check out past episodes of this and all our shows. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and I'm here with my co-host, Georgina Wilson-Dunges. Keep being amazing.